And we are back here on Fox59 tonight. I'm Cameron Ridle in studio with Ralph Durrett Jr., who's the city's chief violence prevention officer. And we touched on some interesting subjects in the first half of the show here. Ralph, I sense your frustration. I sense the effort and the difference that you want to make, but there's a lot of things that are in the way of that. And so you as the chief violence prevention officer do not have a magic wand to wave to get everything fixed, especially in this city where we have depended so much on community organizations and programming to fix these problems. In a second, let me do it this way. Last year we had a series of, I felt like I was doing a news story every week about teenagers out in the streets. They were carjacking people. They were stealing the Kias, police chases. There was one that ended right here by the stations, shootings, 14-year-olds taking guns to schools, to basketball games, all kinds of stuff. Now, one would say, what's the chief violence prevention officer do about that? And so I'm curious to know what your answer would be, but also what I'm hearing from you is, well, at the time, let me add this. We always, when we cover that story, we end up talking to some of these youth organizations about how they teach how you shouldn't do that, how they teach conflict resolution. If I were to do a story following up on what has changed in a year since these carjackings, since the kids brought guns to school, yada, yada, what would you say the city has done about that? Not what Ralph has done about that, but because Ralph has learned a lot. But what has Ralph Durrett Jr.'s city done to fix anything?
Well, as I said, that this is a community issue which requires a community solution. And to try to identify one person or one group or one entity as the primary resolver of these issues is asinine,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not going to have the capacity, because what we're dealing with, these are cultural and environmental issues that we're ultimately dealing with. So you can, like you just said, you can provide a young person with some of the conflict resolution skills and emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, things of that nature. You can provide that all day long, but if it's not being reinforced anywhere that they are, or where they're at, where they live at, and where they go to school at, if this stuff is not being reinforced there, how do you expect any of that stuff to stick? So it has to be reinforced ultimately in certain spaces, which, so when we're talking about from a city perspective, the greatest thing that we can possibly do is pour into the organizations that are actively doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
because these are the ones who have their hands on these families. Though they
Mm-hmm.
have their hands on these young people, it's also not pouring into organizations, it's also pouring into the institutions, like the school system,
Mm-hmm.
like IU. These are spaces that can provide access to resources beyond just providing um, going for kids going to school. Because I say that school within itself, it has moved beyond just a institution of learning. An educational institution is now also a social institution. So if you're not diving deeper into what these young people's living situations are, because the schools, you expect kids to be in school, so if they see these young people every single day, we must know their living circumstances and situations in order to be able to, for them to even be able to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So to expect a young person to come to school who is hungry,
Mm-hmm.
who hasn't bathed in a whole week,
Mm-hmm.
to expect them to be productive students is not going to happen. So if we really want young people to be better and be stronger, it's exactly what I've been trying to do, is to pour into organizations and institutions and explain that we have to go beyond what you're actively doing, because I truly believe you can never be more than you are if you only do what you can.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we're actively doing just what we can, so we have to dive deeper into the lives of these families and these young people.
Would it be out of the question, based off of what you learned and all these things that are tied together,
Hmm.
if I'm the mayor and I said, Ralph, I want you to get Uh, you pick the issue. What issue first, Ralph, is like, if I could tackle one thing and solve it, I would do this first. What would that be?
Mm. It's literally the unity aspect of it, of
Okay.
all of this stuff. That's
Okay.
that's where the power is, though.
That's what I thought you would say. So
That
now,
that's where the power.
if I said, Ralph, go get all the organizations together in one room,
Hmm.
without me saying anything else, what would you say to that?
Literally, it's about developing what the foundation of all this looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the Negan effect. So, and it comes from me watching The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the characters did not know who the main characters did not know who Negan was. A good portion of that TV show. Negan had his people out in the world doing different things, and they were identifying themselves as Negan. They never knew who that Negan was even a real person. But once the character started to dive into who this person was and who that person was, and they all are identifying as Negan, they start to recognize that Negan is an idea, not just about a person. So organizations, institutions, people in Indianapolis, we have to have a shared mission and goal of why we do what we do. And that will be the first step in working with, if I was in a room with a bunch of organizations, great. You have your own individual mission, but we have to fall underneath an umbrella
Mm-hmm.
mission that we all can walk in and believe in, and that's being reinforced throughout the city of Indianapolis as a community foundation and mission. Right now, I don't believe that we have identified what that mission looks like,
Mm-hmm.
and what the foundations, values, and morals and virtues of this city actually really looks like. If we start to if we go back to the root, because Cameron, right now, we got a if I'm thinking of Pacers is in the playoffs right now,
Mm-hmm.
we got a bunch of people doing Euro steps, taking 30-foot shots, 40-foot jumpers, but they can't make a layup.
Mm-hmm.
We can't dribble with our right and left hand, but we're doing all of these advanced moves.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we want to have advanced conversations in order to make ourselves feel important and sound important, and not focusing on the root issues that doesn't really require an advanced understanding. It really requires you to have a heart and compassion and empathy to work within the community and work directly with the people. Because I find it hard for people to call themselves leaders of a group of people that you don't even engage with.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to engage directly with young people. You have to engage with their families. You have to engage with the institutions that they're a part of, the organizations that they're a part of. That's where the power is, though. The power is not in policy, and it's not in laws. It's not even really in politicians. It's mostly in the people deciding this is what we want. This is how we're going to do it. And this is the way we're going to move forward.
So stop right there.
Hmm.
If you have these people in the room,
Hmm.
and you called it a shared mission, I was trying to think of what to call it. Like, is it a curriculum? What is it?
Mm.
And if you said, okay, because and the issue at the end of the day is, you have a lot of organizations who get money from the city to run their programming,
Hmm.
and then at the end of the year, or the next year, the question is, well, what did you do with that money? If we're still having the same problems,
Hmm.
but that money is gone, you did your programming, what did we really solve? So,
Hmm.
as you've mentioned, it's this cycle.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, if you said, as the chief violence prevention officer, we're going to have this shared mission, this shared curriculum. Now, it's just like the schools.
Hmm.
The schools and teachers can add in different things that they want to teach, but you also have to meet these things that are on the test.
Yes.
You got to teach U.S. history. You want to go into a little bit deeper about certain topics, okay, but make sure you hit the topics that are on the test, because if you don't, the kids don't pass the test. And
Hmm.
who does that come back on? The teacher. And then the
Hmm.
teacher is held accountable because you taught all year, but they didn't learn what we said the goals were.
Hmm.
So I'm hearing you say we need to set some goals.
Yes, sir.
We need to get everybody on the same page. If Is there a way, or what would the city say, and what would these organizations say if we said, in order to be, we're going to create a certified City of Indianapolis violence reduction organization.
Mm.
And in order to get this seal, and therefore the money, you have to meet these goals.
Mm.
Would city leaders say yes, or would they say no, we're not doing all that? It's too much work. And what do you think the organizations that you've met with
Hmm.
would say?
Well, I can't speak for city leaders and what they believe or what they these are literally my ideas and my thoughts
Mm-hmm.
as Ralph Durrett Jr. as the person
Mm-hmm.
in this role as the chief violence prevention officer because the question you ask is multi-layered. So you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about on the individual level,
Mm-hmm.
and then you moved into the meso level when we're talking about community organizations and what they should do, and then you start to talk about the macro when we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about what politicians and people like that would think. But at the organization level, it'll be tough for them to chew on that because they've been operating as individuals in their silos ultimately though. But when when you have someone like me have an ability to articulate the importance of unity and connection, you're going to have people are going to buy into that because they, even though they say they don't want that, but they really want it though,
Mm-hmm.
because it's this is too heavy of a cross to bear by yourself though.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, you get a lot of people with passion fatigue
Mm-hmm.
and they end up burning out and they move on to something else. And that's the last thing we want our organizations and people who do this type of work is to experience passion fatigue because they're the ones who actually have the heart and the know-how and the want to actively do it. But when we're talking about individuals, that's really it's really identifying an individual's interest and pairing their individual interest in with the overall mission of what this group should look like and what this group should be. So it's multi-layered, but it's identifying the interests of the individual and making them understand the importance of pairing what they believe with what this mission actively is, but it's also working with organizations and getting them to understand the overall mission is not for you to operate as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is for y'all to be more pervasive and be able to touch more people. And you're never going to be able to do that if you only focus on your siloed and your demographic group of people, because there are people, if you're an organization that operates on the far east side, I guarantee you on the west side, there's a family that needs that service. And so how can we make you more pervasive? And by that, that means that you engage with an organization that operates out west that may not have what you have or your understanding, your perspective, because we all have different lived experiences and understandings, and everyone is not on the same level. So if we were able to fall under a same mission and concept and identity, then you can kind of get people speaking the same language. Because Cameron, many people, you have one organization teaching Mandarin, you got another one teaching French, you got another one teaching Creole, you got another one teaching Swahili. Like no one is speaking the same language. And then when these young people have to go home from these organizations, their families is not speaking any of this language.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, it's a very dangerous process that you're providing young people with, like I said, conflict resolution,
Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence, emotional regulations. If they have to go into environments that don't have any of that, you're going to create a level of resentment within a certain household because now this kid is looking at their parent like, you don't have any of this, I do. So why do I need to listen to what you say?
Mm-hmm.
So these organizations, if we were to develop something like this mission, this identity for people to fall under, is we have to identify not just the young people, we also have to identify the institutions, the other organizations they're a part of, and also partner with their families so their families is getting the same level of understanding and information, so this information is being reinforced over time because that's one of our primary functions of how our brain works when it remembers things is through repetition, and it has to be reinforced over time. And right now society is being beat over the head with negative information all day long, so we have to combat that and reinforce that with positivity.
We're getting close to summer 2025.
Yes, sir.
It's beginning of May. School's going to be out here in a couple of weeks.
Hmm.
This will be your first full summer.
Yes, sir.
And of course, we always see it always happens. Temperature gets warm, crime goes up during the summer. Temperatures go and flares. Temperatures and attitudes flare at the same time.
Hmm.
What thoughts do you have, or anything that you have planned or that you're working on uh, that you hope will lead to a safe and peaceful summer 2025?
Yeah, so one of the things that I am working on is Summer in the City program, which is something that we had last year,
Hmm.
and we're still in the midst of identifying what that's going to look like and still working on putting together. So it's not a whole lot of details when it comes to locations and things of that nature, but it's going to be the same level of energy and engagement. It's going to be a requirement of intentional engagement because the goal is for not to get these young people in the building in the summertime. It's also to be able to follow them out so that we have a when we do an intake, it's
Hmm.
not just an intake of just saying, look, we saw for Summer in the City, we had 75 kids be a part of this program this summer. The goal is to be able to identify who are their parents, what schools they go to, what zip codes do they come from. And by identifying what zip codes they come from, we also can identify some of the root issues that may exist within those spaces. And how do we serve them in Summer in the City and try to remedy and mitigate some of their root issues, and not only just do it in the summertime but also be able to follow them throughout the summer, throughout the winter, throughout the fall, throughout the spring, so that we can constantly keep eyes and ears on what's actively going on in these young people's lives. So it's really the summertime is really focusing in on the community organizations, not just Summer in the City from a city standpoint, but the other organizations who are also doing the work and making sure that we're intentionally collecting this information so that we're not just identifying and checking the box, just saying we got a young person in the building, but we're saying that we know this young person and we can serve them in the best way comprehensively.
From what I know about Summer in the City, I feel like more organizations should be part of it
Yes, sir.
than the ones that I know of. Um, what? How do we make that happen? How do we get more kids? Because it's a great program. I know kids. As you said, we knew where the kids were, and more importantly, we knew
Hmm.
where they weren't
Right.
during the day.
Right.
How do you get more organizations to be part of that?
It's literally it's a simple answer. Working together, unity. Whether you're a part of Summer City or not, your function of summer work is likely going to be summer programming. So you being able to be connected to another organization that's doing summer programming, it's the shared this is shared resources, shared information, shared knowledge. And to be able to partner with another organization that's doing similar work, you're connecting with a group of people that wouldn't even be a part of your organization. So it's mostly identifying those that you can't see. And you're only going to be able to do that by engaging with other organizations. So the simple answer is that whether you are working with Summer in the City or not, you're likely going to be doing summer programming. And the best way that you make that stronger and more pervasive is to be able to partner with another organization so that you're identifying root issues, whether that's part of your demographic or not.
Um, v- Summer in the City. That's your biggie, as you talked about.
Hmm.
That you're working on. Um, if I guess, how can people continue that conversation if if they've listened to you and say, okay, I want to learn more about uh, or two organizations. Let me ask you, two organizations say, look, we actually do work together really well.
Right on.
How can we collaborate with you to
Right
move
on.
something forward?
Right
What do
on.
you do
Look,
then?
like I tell you, look, I'm not hard to find. Like I said earlier, my number is 317-391-5139. Give me a call. I'm willing to meet, have any conversation with any and everyone. And people do actually use my number. There are community members who actively call me almost every day. And we have a conversation and we build because that's the ultimate solution of all of this. Because like I said earlier in the first half, we have an abundance of programs and organizations and people doing the great work. The only issue is that we're siloed off. And that number one, the reason why we're silent, because we don't really engage enough with one another in order to build a relationship beyond it being transactional. We have to get in transformational relationship building so that Cameron, whenever I make a mistake, you're willing to give me grace because you understand
Hmm.
me, and you know
Hmm.
my heart, you know that you know my intent. Most people who have issues with one another know nothing about one another. They only know what somebody else said, and they don't appreciate you enough to even or have the confidence enough to see you eye to eye. I'm always open and willing to be eye to eye with any and everyone. I cannot stand e meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
rather be intentional directly because this is a shared energy that
Mm-hmm.
we're having right now in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is through the internet or something of that nature, it's not shared. It's not shared. So for me, I'm always open to have conversations and engage with individual community members because I do that as well. Uh, any organization, any institution, anyone that wants to build and make the city of Indianapolis as a community better, I'm always open and willing to have those conversations and able to build with people. And that's what I'm looking to do.
Well, Ralph, I will let people know again. I saw you in person, and I know the way you work. Quietly in the background, talking to people. Like I can attest that that is how I met you.
Yes,
And
sir.
when it comes to communication, when I reached out yesterday or literally the day before, the answer was yes. What time you need me there? So you were not hard to get a hold of or hard to find. I didn't have to ask you a bunch of times to come
Yes,
over.
sir.
So I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Ralph, give your number and your email one more time.
Yeah, my number is 317-391-5139. Again, that's 317-391-5139. Email is ralph.durrett5, that's the number 5, at indy.gov.
All right. That's going to do it. Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
All right, that is it for us tonight here on Fox 59 tonight. We will be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. It's Friday, so I'll be anchoring the 10 o'clock news here on the app. So make sure you join us for that, and we'll have more conversations like this on my radio show on 106.7 WTLC and Hot 100.9. The show is called Open Lines. Make sure you call in so we continue to have the conversation, and we'll talk with you. For now, I'm Cameron Ridle. Have a great night.